open the gate.
Ajebota wants to give orders now. In this house, you take instruction, you don't give it.
Grandma will hear about this.
Grandma forgets what she hears by morning. That is the beauty of it. Nobody in this village reads numbers the way I do. I keep the real figures inside an old school notebook in the store.
Amara was born in a hospital in East London, the first child of Mr. and Mrs. Is, two Nigerians who had left home with nothing but a single suitcase and a stubborn belief that their children would have a better life abroad. But abroad came with the law neither of them had fully understood before they landed. Here, you could not raise a child the way their own mothers had raised them. No form and no kneel down and greet your elders or don't eat. No sending a disrespectful child outside to cool off in the compound air. Here, discipline had rules, and the rules were not written by African mothers. Amara grew up knowing this, and by 14, she had learned to use it like a key that opened every door. She did not know how to cook rice without burning the bottom. She greeted elders with a flat eye and a phone still in her hand. When her mother asked her to help set the table, she would say, "Isn't that a bit much?" And somehow, in that house, in that country, it was allowed to be a bit much. Her mother, Mrs. Is, tried small things. Amara, when Auntie Ngozi comes, kneel and greet her properly. Amara would roll her eyes and offer a stiff handshake instead. Her father said less, but he watched more. And one evening, watching his daughter argue her way out of washing a single plate, he said quietly to his wife, "She's turning into a stranger in our own house." There was one thing about Amara though, that even a rebellion couldn't hide. She had a mind for numbers, not the classroom kind, the sharp, quiet, noticing kind. She kept a running note on her phone of every naira and every pound her younger siblings owed each other from bets and dares. She could glance at a receipt and know before the till did that she'd been shortchanged by 40 pence. Once, at 13, she caught her own father miscounting his change at a Lekki Suya stand during a family visit and corrected him without even looking up from her phone. "You should be an auditor," her mother's younger brother, Uncle Emeka, a lawyer back in Lagos, told her once on a video call, laughing. "That mind of yours doesn't miss anything." Amara had smiled at that. It was the only compliment about herself she actually believed. Her grandmother, Nena, back in the village, had a saying she repeated to anyone who visited with a stubborn child: "A queen who cannot bend her back will never pick up her own crown." Amara had heard it once, over a crackling phone line, and rolled her eyes at it too. She had no idea how many times she would hear it again before the year was over. It took less than 5 months for the situation at home to fully collapse. 5 months from the day Amara stopped coming home before midnight to the day her parents sat her down and told her she was flying to Lagos. "You will spend a month in Lekki with your auntie," her mother said, "then 3 months with your grandmother in the village. You will learn how to be a woman our family can be proud of." Amara laughed, actually laughed. "A whole holiday? Fine, I could use the sun." She did not understand it as punishment. She understood it as an upgrade, pool, cousins, parties, freedom from her parents' nagging. Her mother watched her daughter's face light up at the wrong reason and said nothing, because sometimes a lesson has to be lived to be believed. Lekki was everything Amara expected and was. Her auntie worked long hours. The house was large, loosely supervised, full of cousins who knew every rooftop party in the estate. By the second night, Amara was climbing out through the boys' quarters gate after 11 p.m., squeezing into cousins' cars, dancing until 4 a.m., sneaking back in through the same gate as the sky turned grey. She told herself it was harmless. She told herself she deserved it. One last taste of freedom before the boring village punishment. That was the sympathetic lie she used to talk herself out of the fear, creeping up her spine every time a stranger's hand lingered too long at her waist on a dance floor, every time a car full of boys she didn't know insisted on dropping her home a different way. The third week nearly ended everything. A man at one of the parties, smooth-voiced, older than he should have been around teenagers, offered to walk her to a car with better AC. Two of her cousins pulled her back at the last second, shouting, dragging her by the wrist into a different car as the man's smile flattened into something cold and unreadable. They didn't stop shaking until they were 3 streets away, or her auntie found out the next morning, not from Amara, but from a neighbor who'd seen the whole thing. There was no shouting, just a phone call to Amara's mother in London, and a single sentence that changed everything. 1 month has become 3 weeks. Send her to the village now. The village was nothing like Lekki. Red earth roads. A grandmother who moved slower than she used to, whose memory sometimes wandered off mid-sentence, and a man Amara had never properly met before. Uncle Bassi, a distant cousin of her grandmother's late husband, who had, over the last 4 years, quietly made himself the manager of everything: the cocoa farm, the pension, the land papers, Grandma Nena's signature on documents she could no longer read clearly. Within her first week, Amara overheard Bessie on the phone with her father, explaining that school supplies and upkeep costs had gone up, that the money her parents sent needed topping up. She saw with her own eyes the market prices he quoted, and they were wrong, not by a little, by exactly the kind of margin someone pockets when they think no one is counting. She said nothing. Yet, 2 weeks in, at the village square during a Sunday gathering, Bassi held court in front of a dozen neighbors, gesturing at Amara like she was a cautionary tale. You see, this one cannot cook, cannot greet an elder properly. London trained her to disrespect her own blood. He turned to her, grinning. Ejibota, that is what we will call you. The spoiled one who thinks the world owes her a plate already washed. Laughter rippled through the square. Amara's ears burned, but she bent her head and said nothing, the way her grandmother had told her once, that a bent head sometimes sees more than a raised one. It came to a head one night when Amara, quietly rifling through an old ledger left open in the store while looking for a torchlight, saw numbers that didn't match what Bassi had told the village council about the cocoa harvest income. She asked one question at dinner, one about how much the last harvest actually sold for. Bassi's face changed like weather. That night, he told the gateman not to let her back in after evening prayers, claiming she'd wandered off disrespectfully. She stood outside in the rain for almost 2 hours before her grandmother's houseboy, Chidi, quietly let her in through the back kitchen door, whispering, "Don't tell him I did this." It was the same night she remembered the boast Bassi had made weeks earlier, laughing over palm wine. "Nobody here can read figures like me. I keep the real numbers in a notebook in the store. Safe, because no city person reads village handwriting." He had handed her the map to his own downfall, and he didn't even know it. It was Chidi who finally told her the whole truth 3 days after the lockout, in a hushed voice by the well. "Amara, I should have said this before. Mama Comfort at the market. She has a photograph of the boundary stone on the east side of your grandmother's cocoa land." He hesitated. "That land was sold, Amara, 8 months ago. There is a new fence." Mama Comfort, when Amara found her, didn't hesitate to hand over her phone. There it was, a photograph she'd taken herself, out of simple village curiosity, of a fresh cement boundary post cutting straight through what used to be Grandma Nena's eastern cocoa rows, with Bassi's signature and hers on a laminated sale notice pinned to a nearby tree. Amara stared at the photo until her eyes blurred. Her hand, the one holding a bowl of just washed rice for dinner, shook without her permission, and the bowl slipped, scattering rice across the compound floor. She didn't cry, she didn't shout, she simply knelt down, slowly, and began picking up each grain of rice by hand, her mind already somewhere else entirely. 2 nights later, Bassi found out, from the gateman who'd overheard Amara asking Chidi more questions, that she was digging into things that were not her business. He staged it publicly, in front of the old compound, at dusk, with Grandma Nena seated nearby. Confused and quiet, he pointed at Amara and announced, "This girl is a disgrace. She will inherit nothing from this family. Not even a single cocoa pod. If I have anything to say about it, lock the gate, let us sleep with the goats tonight and learn some manners. The gate clicked shut. Amara stood in the compound yard in the dark, rain starting again, laughter drifting faintly from inside. If you were standing where Amara was standing right now, locked out, humiliated, holding proof of a betrayal no one else believed yet, what would you do first? Tell us in the comments. We want to know. She did not cry that night. She did not scream at the gate. She sat under the eaves, out of the worst of the rain, and she began to think. She thought about the ledger in the store. She thought about the photograph on Mama Comfort's phone. She thought about her grandmother's slow, fading signature and how easily a man with patience could learn to copy it. And she thought most of all about one sentence Bassey had said to her weeks ago, laughing, without a single thought that it would ever be used against him. Nobody here reads figures like me. The real numbers are in a notebook in the store. He had never once considered that the spoiled London girl who couldn't cook or greet properly was exactly the kind of mind who could read every column in that notebook faster than he could lie about it. She thought too of her grandmother's voice from years ago, tinny down a phone line. A queen who cannot bend her back will never pick up her own crown. She had bent her back for weeks. Now it was time to stand up straight. She had everything she needed already. Her own memory for numbers, Chidi's trust, Mama Comfort's photograph, and a phone call away, Uncle Emeka, the lawyer in Lagos, who had once told her she had a mind that missed nothing. No new heroes were coming. She was going to have to be her own rescue. The next morning, before the compound woke, Amara asked Chidi for one favor, to distract the store boy for 10 minutes while she looked for a lost slipper. Inside the store, behind 2 sacks of Gary, exactly where Bassey had once bragged it would be, sat the notebook, faded blue cover, years of handwritten entries. She photographed every page on her phone, careful to preserve the order, then slipped it back exactly as she'd found it. At the market, under the pretense of buying recharge cards, she had 2 of the clearest photographed pages printed at the tiny photocopy store. The ones showing cocoa harvest income logged at less than half what Bassey had declared to the village council. She called Uncle Emeka that evening from behind the borehole, voice low. I need you to look at some documents. Land sale ones too. I think Grandma's signature has been copied. Emeka went quiet on the phone for a long moment, then said, send everything. And Amara, don't tell him anything is coming. Over the following days, bystanders in the compound noticed nothing unusual. Just a girl fetching water a little more often than needed, standing a little longer near the store, on her phone a little more than before. Behavior everyone assumed was simply more London girl laziness. No one suspected that each trip was gathering another piece of paperwork, another signature comparison, another quiet phone call to a lawyer 3 hours away. Bassey never once considered that the walls were closing in until the day they already had. The village council meeting was called under the guise of settling a small land boundary confusion. Bassey arrived relaxed, confident, already rehearsing an explanation for the fence Mama Comfort had photographed. He did not expect Amara to be the one who stood up first. She did not raise her voice. She laid 3 printed pages on the table, one at a time. This is the harvest income you declared to this council in March, she said, calm as still water. This is the real figure, from your own notebook, in your own handwriting. This is the land sale document with my grandmother's signature. And this, she placed a 4th page down gently, is a signature comparison. My uncle, a lawyer in Lagos, had verified against 3 older documents. She genuinely signed herself back when her hand was steady. Bassey opened his mouth to threaten her, an old habit. You dare embarrass me in front of... I am not here to insult you, Amara said quietly, cutting him off without raising her voice. I am only here to read you the numbers. You always said nobody here reads figures like you. A small pause. You forgot that I do too. The elders exchanged looks. One picked up the notebook page and turned it slowly toward the light. Within 2 days, The story had traveled every stretch of the village. The market women, the church elders, the Okada riders. Not one soul in that community wanted their name near his after that. His comeuppance did not come from a courtroom first. It came from every greeting withheld, every stall owner who suddenly had no change for him, every door that used to open now staying shut. By the time the formal land reversal paperwork was filed, with Uncle Emeka's help, Bassi was already the man nobody in the village would sit beside at a burial or a wedding. He left on foot one early morning with a single bag, the same size suitcase, ironically, that Amara's parents had once carried across an ocean with nothing but hope inside it, except his bag carried only shame. A year passed. Grandma Nena's land was restored in full. The eastern cocoa rows fenced back to where they belonged. Amara, the girl who once couldn't cook rice without burning it, now kept every account for the farm herself in a fresh new notebook, columns neat, additions correct to the last kobo. She had learned along the way how to cook that rice too, and how to kneel properly when an elder walked through the gate. Not out of fear anymore, but because she finally understood what the gesture meant. Her grandmother, sitting outside the same gate that had once been locked against her, took Amara's hand one evening and said the words Amara had carried in her chest all year. A queen who cannot bend her back will never pick up her own crown. Amara smiled. I bent, Grandma. Now watch me stand. Months later, a small wooden sign went up outside a newly organized farm cooperative store at the edge of the village, one that sold cocoa, gari, and palm oil at fair, properly recorded prices to anyone who needed them. As Amara stood in front of the new Nena and Amara stores, holding the key to the business she had built with her grandmother, she finally understood the lesson life had been trying to teach her all along. She once believed that being from London made her different. She thought the village was a punishment, a place far beneath the life she was used to. She didn't understand why her parents wanted her to learn the old ways, why her grandmother always spoke about humility, respect, and patience. But the village changed her. She learned that respect was not a sign of weakness. Kneeling before an elder did not make her smaller. It showed that she understood the value of wisdom and the people who came before her. She learned that true confidence does not come from ignoring others, but from knowing who you are while respecting where you came from. Amara also learned that intelligence alone is not enough. A sharp mind must be guided by a good heart. The same gift that allowed her to read numbers and uncover Bessie's lies became powerful because she used it to protect her grandmother, not to seek revenge. She discovered that people should never be judged by their appearance, their age, or their background. The girl everyone called a spoiled London child became the person who saved her family's legacy. The man who thought he was the smartest person in the village was defeated by the very person he underestimated. In the end, Amara realized that her grandmother's words had always carried the truth. A queen who cannot bend her back will never pick up her own crown. She had to humble herself before she could rise. She had to listen before she could lead. She had to learn before she could teach. The grandmother had arranged with Amara's parents for Amara to return. After a total evaluation was carried out, the day Amara returned to London, she carried something far more valuable than the suitcase she had arrived with months earlier. She carried wisdom. When she left her parents' home, she was a young woman who believed she already understood the world. She thought life was about freedom, comfort, and having the ability to do whatever she wanted. She believed the village was a punishment, a place where she had nothing to learn. But the village had given her something London never could. It had given her patience. It had taught her humility. It had shown her the importance of family, respect, and knowing where she came from. As the plane touched down at the airport, Amara looked out of the window and smiled softly. She remembered the girl who had left months before, The girl who complained about village life, who thought greeting elders properly was unnecessary, who believed apologizing meant losing. That girl felt like a lifetime away. When Mr. and Mrs. Is arrived at the airport to welcome their daughter, they expected to see the same Amara who had left, the same stubborn daughter, the same girl who always had an answer for everything. But the young woman walking toward them was different. She was still beautiful. She still carried the confidence they had always seen in her. Her very light golden brown skin glowed under the airport lights. Her long jet black body wave wig was perfectly styled, and she carried herself with elegance. But there was something else in her eyes: peace, maturity, humility. "Welcome home, my daughter," Mrs. Ace whispered as she hugged her tightly. Amara held on to her mother for a long moment. "I missed you, Mom," she said softly. Her mother pulled back in surprise. Months ago, Amara would have simply said, "Hi, Mom," while looking at her phone, but now she was present. She was listening. She was grateful. Mr. Aze stood quietly, watching his daughter. He noticed the change immediately. The girl who once argued about washing one plate was now carrying herself like someone who understood responsibility. On the drive home, Amara did not complain about the traffic. She did not criticize the journey. She did not talk about what she had missed. Instead, she asked questions. How is everyone at home? How is Auntie Ngozi? How has business been? Her parents exchanged a surprised look. This was the daughter who once thought every conversation had to be about herself. That evening when they arrived home, Amara did something her parents never expected. She walked into the kitchen. "I want to cook dinner," she said. Her mother laughed gently. "Are you sure? The last time you cooked rice, we almost needed a new pot." Everyone laughed, even Amara. "I know," she replied. "Grandma made sure I learned properly." As she prepared the meal, her mother watched silently. This was not just about cooking. This was about transformation. The girl who once saw household duties as punishment now understood that serving others was an expression of love. Later that night, Amara sat with her parents in the living room. For the first time in a long time, there was no argument, no attitude, no anger, just family. "I owe you both an apology," Amara finally said. Her parents looked at her. "I thought you were trying to punish me when you sent me away. I thought you didn't understand me, but now I know you were trying to help me become better." Mrs. Izzy's eyes filled with tears. Amara continued, "I thought being independent meant not needing anyone, but Grandma taught me that real strength is knowing when to listen, when to learn, and when to show respect." Mr. Ace smiled proudly. "My daughter has finally found her crown." Amara smiled. Then she remembered her grandmother's words. "A queen who cannot bend her back will never pick up her own crown." She finally understood. Her parents had not sent her away because they wanted to break her. They sent her away because they wanted her to grow. The next morning, Amara surprised everyone again. She greeted her parents properly. She helped around the house. She spent time with her younger siblings. She no longer saw respect as something forced on us. She saw it as a gift. Months later, when people asked what changed Amara, she always gave the same answer.
Thank you so much for watching. And please don't forget to subscribe to African Folktale by Zoya. Turn on the notification so when I post more interesting stories, you will be the first to get them. I really appreciate you. I do not take your support for granted. Bye for now.